Good afternoon, welcome. What day is today? Saturday, the 26th day. I know it's October meeting. So anyhow, I put the slide in the other day, and really, I kind of got tired of looking at the same old slides every month. It gets old. So I just kind of wanted to go over why we're here, and if anybody has anything they want to say, speak up. But I think we're kind of here to tell our stories. I'm sure a lot of us have some, and then we want to hear other stories and kind of validate our own, and maybe we're validating other people's too, which is really nice. Kind of helps out. Obviously trying to get down to see what's really going on, and learn from each other and support and build community and whatever else. But we're here for each other is really what it boils down to. It's more than just Anna and I or whomever just up here talking and going through the motions all the time. It's really, this is kind of about all of us. So I mean, at any time you guys got anything you want to say or whatever, just speak up. This meeting's for everybody. This isn't a one-way thing. This is a two-way type of thing. So anyhow, I just wanted to talk about that real quick before we even started. So I know everybody here in Grand Rapids has been here before, but is there anybody new there in Fargo or anybody new online?
We have some new folks here in Fargo.
Would they like to say hello, or?
Don't worry, we won't put you on the spot. It's okay if you don't want to.
Yeah. No, not so much. Okay. Did anybody join MUFON lately? Any new MUFON members? Not here because we're all old.
We got one.
Yeah,
yay,
great.
Thank you.
Willing to say why, or you just want to stay quiet, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that.
I think she wants to stay quiet.
Okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. MUFON's a great organization. It's like again, with the whole, I hate using that word community, but we are definitely a band of individuals coming together as a whole for this whole thing. So thanks for joining. Next step's field investigator, right? Yeah, we'll just let that go. Okay, so just a couple announcements, and then Shane's going to be. Is Shane here now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, awesome.
Hi, Shane.
Yeah, hi guys.
Okay, so anyhow, we'll get a presentation with Shane. Then we're going to do some Q&A. There might be a break in there at some point. That's up to Shane, however you want to do that. And then we're going to talk about 3i Atlas. I don't know that much about it, but I know Anna has really dug into it. So we kind of talked about it earlier here, but Anna's going to give us kind of an update on that. We'll try to go through what's up on the Northland, but honestly, our case management system is kaput again. It's down. It has to do with the whole Amazon DNS problem, and then most of that's resolved. However, now we got some other problems going on. So last I checked, which was last night, because I don't think I looked this morning, our case management system was down. And then of course we got our monthly drawing, and of course we're going to go over the online YouTube video trivia. So just real quick, who we are. This might change. We'll see, but 501c3 federally recognized nonprofit, Northern Minnesota and North Dakota. Our goal is investigating phenomena from then of humanity, educate the public on what we learn, and of course we do monthly meetings. If anybody has any questions on the whole membership thing, because I know it's kind of confusing, membership really is MUFON.com, the HQ, the headquarters people. The membership is there. If you're a member of MUFON, you're a member of the chapter. That's just how it works. I don't know. I'm explaining this poorly. Do you want to jump in, Anna?
Well, I do want to jump in with one thing. So here in Fargo and in Grand Rapids, we have comment cards and that drawing for our door prize. So really the idea behind it is we want to make sure that our advertising money is going to the right place and that we're actually reaching people with the dollars that we do spend. So if you could fill that out, that's what makes you eligible for our drawing at the end of the meeting. And you do have to be present to win, but it's a great t-shirt here in Fargo. I think that's what they're doing in Rapids as well. And don't worry, folks online, we do have something for you too. And Jared's going to talk about that in just a minute.
Thank you. Okay, it's back this year. The glowy, the anniversary even. We did one last year. We did the golden even last year. This year we have the glowy, and yes, it glows in the dark. Everything that you see in white there glows in the dark. So same thing as last year. For every $5 donated, you get one ticket or one chance to win. The drawing is going to be on the day after our December meeting, and then we'll notify the winner by email, and we'll also post it on the website. So we will send it to you. It's awesome. Last year was a lot of fun.
So
Yeah.
I know that there's some questions about how do you actually
Oh,
enter. So both
yes.
here and in Grand Rapids, we have a donation box, and that's just for general donations. Obviously, we are a nonprofit and we rely solely on the support of our members. But one of the things that we like to do for our anniversary is to raise a few extra funds. And so that's why Jer created the Glowy this year. And we had the Golden Eben last year. It was a great success. So if you want to donate to that, in order to make sure that your name gets into the drawing, for every $5 you donate, you get one ticket into that drawing. So we need to make sure we know who you are. So if you want to do that, rather than just put in a regular donation, make sure to talk to either Jer or I, so we have your information and we know how many tickets to give you.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. That's what I was trying to say and completely forgot. You're all over it. Okay, I'll let you talk about this one too.
I'm not sure why that says the October 25th meeting. That should say the November meeting.
I used the link. I used the link today, okay? I don't know why. You're absolutely right. That's the November meeting.
But anyways, November's meeting, we have Fred Paulson and Rainier I cannot pronounce his name, it's German, Heisetel. And they are with Project Hesdalen. And so some of you might know, I was recently in Norway with these guys for about 10 days. And we did all kinds of great scientific stuff and a lot of camaraderie and just getting to know one another. These two are fabulous guys, and they are going to join us in November to talk about the project itself, for those of you that don't know, and a little bit about what we discovered during that field trip week. And so in the bottom there, you can see a little gadget, and this is Rainier's gadget. He made a whole bunch of them. It was very unique issues trying to get that through security at the airport. But I did bring two of them back. Jer will have one in Grand Rapids, and I will have one here in Fargo, so you guys can actually see what it is that we're talking about. So what is that box? It's basically a UFO detector.
Do you know how it works?
No. So
Okay.
Rainer's going to talk about that. So his day job is working at a particle accelerator in Germany. I cannot pronounce the name of that either. And Fred is in IT and software. And Fred basically is the chairman of Project Hesdalen, and Rainier is the gadget guru and tech guy for them.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So before we get to Shane, does anybody have any questions on anything they want to share, anything at all? Online, anything, Fargo? I don't want to leave anybody out. That's why we put this in here. I think we've been ignoring people, at least maybe I have, and I want to apologize for that. So, yes, sir. How long has the Project Hesdalen been in existence? I don't know, but we'll find out next month. Yep.
Since the early 1980s.
Anybody else? Okay, so moving on. Today's guest, Shane. Happy to have you here, Shane. Let me read this bio here for you real quick, and then we'll try to get the Zoom set up so everybody can see you. Shane has spent his nearly 25-year government career in the fields of civil engineering, Geographic Information Systems, Information Technologies, and is a graduate of Arizona State University's Certified Public Manager Program. As a member of the space race generation, he has been a lifelong space and science nerd, a sci-fi geek, and it was the Phoenix Light incident in his hometown of Phoenix that sparked his interest in UFOs. So since that time, he studied the subject intently, and ultimately in 2015 joined MUFON. 2 years later, in 2017, he became a MUFON Field Investigator. He's now a STAR team member, which is, I can never remember what STAR stands for, but if there's like a landing or something like that where, something happened right away, he's one of the guys that'll head out that way. He's also a field investigator trainer. So you and I need to talk, Shane. He's a member of the Experienced Resource Team and is the Assistant State Director for the Arizona MUFON. In June of 2020, he published his first book entitled Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, A Beginner's Guide to Researching UFOs. He has appeared on Ancient Aliens, History's Greatest Mysteries with Lawrence Fishburne, and other television and radio programs and various broadcasts. He's a proud grandpa, a musician, a car guy, amateur astronomer, horse owner, and enjoys a good bourbon now and then. What kind of bourbon do you enjoy?
Just about any. My favorite's probably Maker's Mark, though.
Okay.
And I want to step in and add one more thing. So Shane is somebody that I know personally, and I can't think of a better guy to do this kind of a presentation. He's just absolutely amazing in person, really a great guy. And he was kind enough to step in because we did have a cancellation. So thank you, Shane. We really appreciate that. And Jer, I'll let you get him set up with his presentation.
All right.
Thanks, Anna.
So something
How
funny
this-
that happened here in Fargo, we could not get our camera to work either, and this is a new laptop, and we realized that there was a cover over the camera.
Huh. No,
I don't know if that's your problem, but that was our
Well,
problem, so.
it's not, but it is so weird. But um, worst case, I could jump off and restart and rejoin and see if that will clear it up because all the settings look right.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, Shane.
Okay,
Because
so-
like I said, I think people want to look at you.
yeah, absolutely. So, okay, I'll sign off and sign back on. So just give me a minute or two.
Okay,
Okay, here we go.
so while he's doing that, does anybody here have any questions about how to join MUFON, what MUFON actually is, what we do, anything like that?
Silence.
Nothing here either. Well, I'm glad you all know.
Darlene's got a question. Darlene, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear
Okay.
me? Had to
Yes.
get rid of a kitty on my lap here. Yes, you mentioned that we can view past videos by going to your webpage and going to the Insider and click on that. Can anybody just click on the Insider, or do you have to have a special privilege or what?
Nope, anybody can.
Oh, okay.
Originally, it was meant that was going to be a pay for play type of thing, but I just couldn't bring myself, and we talked about it. We just couldn't make people pay for that. So
Oh, okay.
that's free and it's open to everybody.
Okay, thank you much. So it's on your regular MUFON page.
It's northlandmufon.com.
Yeah, yeah.
And you go to the insiders page, and you're going to have to
Okay.
scroll down because we got a whole bunch of stuff on there. Doug does an awesome job, puts all kinds of stuff on there.
Okay,
So
thank
just scroll
you.
down, you'll see it. Yep. Thank you.
And if anybody ever has any questions and you want to reach out to us, we have a pretty easy email account. We have two. We have northlandmufon@gmail and northlandmufoninfo@gmail. So feel free to send us an email.
Oh, well, we got a few minutes. Those people online, check out the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed. Tell your
Has
friends.
anybody looked at our YouTube channel? How about that?
Yeah, has anybody? I know you guys have. Has anybody else watched it? No. Okay. Okay.
Well, there's a lot
Right
of
on.
content on there, so definitely go check it out. So what Jared did, and he's fabulous at doing this.
Thanks, Zach.
He kind of cut up the meetings a little bit, so you don't necessarily have to watch the whole thing. But there's one where there's a speaker, and you can just watch the speaker. If you do watch any of the YouTube videos, make sure to stay past the credits because there's something a little fun after that. Jared doesn't talk about it too much, but he does have a little challenge for the people online to earn a $10 Amazon gift card. But you won't be able to find it unless you watch past the credits. So
I've got something to say.
Yes. Millie.
Hi, it's Millie. I've watched a few of the YouTube videos and I like them, but
Thank you.
I looked at trying to find the soda one that you're talking about, the apple pie one or the caramel one, whatever. And I found two videos that has you drinking soda, but the flavor of the soda is blocked out. You can't see it.
Well, I do mention it. I do say, because I realized that I had done that on the first several ones that I had done. I was not good at all about making sure everybody could see the label, but I do say what it is. You might have to turn up the volume a little bit to hear it. So I apologize for that.
Oh,
That's
okay.
on me.
Okay. All right.
But
Thank you.
moving forward, I'm trying to make sure that the label is viewable so you can see it. And I do mention what it is. And if anybody's got any suggestions on any soda pops that you want me to try, please let me know. Send it to me. Whatever we need to do to get those. So because we're running out. There's only so many different ones I can get from L&M, and that's really that's kind of where I get them. So if anybody's got suggestions, I'm open. That's really I'm open. Shane,
Man, oh man, okay, how's this? Better?
Yeah, all right.
there we go. Yeah, I just had to mute the one, so you're good
Okay.
now because you're actually on your twice.
Okay, so sorry.
That's okay.
no
You
problem.
got it now. What is it they say? You don't want to be on stage with kids, animals, and technology.
Yeah, there you go.
Bite you every time.
The floor is yours, my friend.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much. I'm so excited to be able to do this. And this presentation really is based somewhat on my book, which is just based on my experience as an investigator and kind of my story, how I came to be in this position. But the nature of this presentation is to give you insight into what a UFO investigation is like and what it's really about, what's important, what isn't important, and so forth. So I think this presentation I'll do in about an hour, and then maybe we take a break, and then I have about a 15-minute slideshow of really interesting photos and videos of cases that I've done, and I can kind of just comment on those, and then we could do our Q&A after that. So that's what I'm thinking, if that's good for you guys.
That would be perfect, Shane. Thank you.
All right. So let's start off here. The title is Principles, Techniques, and Logic for Investigating UFOs. And, MUFON is the world's largest UFO investigative organization and has been in place since 1969. So we do know a thing or two about investigating. And we have a lot of highly skilled individuals in our organization. Many are former military, law enforcement, scientists, all individuals who understand the scientific process, understand investigative processes, and the sheer importance of coming at these cases with no bias. And that's really hard because we all have bias, right? But as an investigator, you have to take each case on its own merits. You have to have a completely open mind. So some investigators are really pro UFO, and other investigators are very skeptical. But for both, you have to leave that out of the picture when you investigate. So we really rely upon the methodology in order to ensure that we do right by the person first who's making a report to us, but also do right by MUFON and by ourselves, an investigator. We want to have the highest degree of ethics that we can when it comes to this topic. And so I'm just prefacing this presentation with that and I highly recommend investigating. If any of you are interested, it's well worth it. And it's a fascinating thing, and it's a great lifestyle. You meet so many cool people, and just the whole thing. I cannot talk it up enough. So that was my sales pitch, but here we go. So we did talk about my biography. Appreciate that. I think my background, having an engineering background, is very helpful to me in terms of investigating UFOs. I've worked for government for about 27 years now. I know I can function in a large organization like that. I think MUFON's kind of illustrative of that as well. It's a large organization, and frankly, we need to know how to fit in and get along and follow rules and all those things. But on the other hand, we also, don't want to ignore, innovation and new thinking and open ideas. And so I think all of those are sort of the characteristics that it's great for an investigator to have. As I mentioned, I was a very religious person and had nothing to do with UFOs. It would have been poo-pooed in my religious organization. I'm not part of that anymore, and not related to UFOs, but I'll make that distinction. But what that did is that, those religious ideas kind of kept me in a box, and I just never really looked into this, other than in the early 2000s. I don't know if you guys remember TV shows like what was that called? The UFO Files. There were things coming on TV about that time, and I would watch those and was casually interested. And the reason I was casually interested was that I lived here when the Phoenix Lights occurred. I'm going to talk more about that later in the presentation, but let's just say that was probably one of the biggest motivators for me to showing interest in this topic because it happened in my own backyard. Now, I didn't witness it, but I know where I was that night, and I watched with keen interest the way the community responded, the military, the government, the media. I mean, it was really a fascinating political case study in itself, but not to mention it's the largest mass sighting in recorded history. So that was pretty cool too. So that's one thing that really got my interest going. But again, I was embroiled in my religious life and kind of just, from afar. But around 2010, I started, started having more of an interest, and I better information. So I started to research quietly, didn't tell anybody because, I didn't want to get in trouble. So I began to read, and I'll just say, I'll expand on that in the next slide, but it was really important. There were important milestones for me to get involved, and I'll talk about those. I will say my age, I'm 65. I was a member of that space generation. Me and every other 8-10-year-old kid in America wanted to be an astronaut, right? It was a glorious time for that. And so that seed was planted in childhood, and I've always had that incident or that interest. And then as the rest of bio says, you touched on it, I've been heavily involved now since about 2015. And I can't recommend enough. It's just been such a joy. And I think Anna and I, we met Anna, that was probably 2015-ish or something. It was the MUFON symposium in California. I think it was Huntington Beach or somewhere in there, wasn't it?
It was in Irvine. That's where I met you and Earl.
Yeah.
It was 2019 though, I think.
Was it that? Oh, okay. Yeah. In my head. Yeah. And Irene too, as well. That's so cool. Yep. So at any rate, that's how I came to be here before you guys today. But I want to talk a little bit more about my journey here. And this relates to some of my talk that is coming up. So as I mentioned, I was already very curious and developing an appetite for more information. In 2010, I started to read every book I could get my hands on, watched every documentary, movie, anything related, followed, things on the internet. A real big thing that helped my development was Facebook, because I could connect with people who are interested in this and share my thoughts and feelings. And it's like iron sharpens iron, right? And people would help set me straight if I was, going off on a tangent or something. But all of it was really critical to that development. So by the time 2010 arrived, I was convinced in the reality of the phenomena and that something unexplainable was going on. And I was curious. So a lot of people get involved with this because they had experiences, for example, maybe in their childhood or young adult life or whatever. I wasn't that person. I just found the topic so interesting and intriguing, and I wanted to know more. Now, I've since had experiences, so that got fixed. But my initial was just intellectual curiosity. So I'm posting a picture of these 4 books, and let me just talk a little bit about them. So the very first book I read in 2010 was The Day After Roswell, and that was by Philip J. Corso and William Burns. And I don't know if you guys know who Bill Burns is, but he did the UFO Hunters TV series, probably the best UFO TV series ever. I think he's the editor of UFO Magazine, and he's just done a lot of things. I think he's an attorney, and he and his wife have been kind of fixtures in the UFO world for decades, and he's done a lot. And Philip Corso, of course, was a military officer who was kind of whistleblowing about his involvement with the artifacts from Roswell and how he seeded the military-industrial complex by providing some of the materials that were recovered and starting this back engineering kind of concept. So that's the gist of that book. Now I have to say, at the time, I was disappointed. I read the book, and again, I didn't have a lot of knowledge and experience yet, but I looked at it and I was sort of nonplussed with it. I thought some of it was plausible, but it just seemed so contrived, and I just wasn't sure. And I almost kind of gave up at that point, thinking, wow, it's going to be really hard to sort out real from not real with this topic. And that's still the case. It's very difficult. But coincidentally, right at that time, Linda Kane released her book, UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. And I will say, this is a must read for everybody. You have to read this book. And the reason it was so powerful, and it led me to change my mind in that moment that there was really something to it, is Linda Kane is a investigative journalist, and she has quite a history, actually. But one of the things in 1999, she was instrumental in helping the French Cometa report. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but the French government has its own form of NASA. And one of the agencies within it is called GAIPAN. And it's really their UFO office. They formally investigate UFOs in the open. And that Cometa report was a summary of a period of time or a number of cases that the French had. And this committee was made up of military and their version of NASA folks. And they put out this report that, long story short, basically said that the number one plausible explanation for this phenomenon is extraterrestrial contact. So but the problem was that it was in French, and she had a colleague in France that said, hey, we'd love to get this into America. Could you help us get it translated and published there? Which she did, and that's how the Cometa report got into our world. And it's really fascinating. And again, I recommend you read it. You can download that off the internet for free. So she had good qualifications already. And of course, you probably have become aware of her and her role with the New York Times article, with the Nimitz case, the glowing auras and the black programs, or whatever they called it, that article. But it basically outed ATIP. And that's when Lou Elizondo and all those folks came on the stage. So she's been part of this. She was also involved with Bud Hopkins and his work. And so she just has a great history. She's super credible. And when I read that book, it just oozed credibility. And then I was hooked. I said, okay, there is something to this. And then I followed it up with UFOs and the National Security State by Richard Dolan. And it's actually a 2-volume set. And what he does, he just basically goes through and profiles some of the 12,000 plus Blue Book cases. And it was well written. It was, if you know who Richard Dolan is, most probably do by now, but he's an academician, and I think he was into like Russian history or something, but this topic touched him and he got involved. And I was aware of him because he appeared in some of those earlier shows in the early 2000s on TV, and I always liked him, thought he was a credible person. So when I read that book, I'll just say it probably put all the nails in the coffin of my doubt when it came to the reality of UFOs. It was so well done. So between those two books, I was set. I was hooked, and I knew I was on my way. And I'll just say that one of the things that happened for me after 2010 and having this experience and gaining this knowledge, I came to a point where I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And I'm the kind of person, I like to participate. I want to play, I want to be involved. I don't want to just read about other people's experiences. I wanted to have my own, not saying I want to be abducted, but, be part of the community as we mentioned earlier. And so I looked around at that time to say, well, what can I do? How can I do it? And I became aware of MUFON. And again, it was a large organization. They had a defined vision and a purpose and a methodology, all the things that like I appreciate as a government, employee. And I thought, I could fit in there, and, I'd be closer to like maybe some good information, right? And so I joined MUFON, but I was in the throes of my career, and I was kind of on the tail end of my religious experience there. And so I decided, I'm going to join. I joined MUFON in 2015, but it wasn't until 2017 that I became an investigator. And I had already started to attend like some conferences and the local MUFON meeting here in Phoenix. And when I did, the directors and assistant director really encouraged me to become an investigator. And I said, well, I'm going to retire in a few years. I'll just wait then, because I don't want to, do a bad job and have too many irons in the fire type thing. But they kept pressuring me and said, no, we won't overload you and stuff. So eventually I gave in. I said, yeah, let's do it. So in 2017, I bought the manual, studied the manual, took the open book test, went through MUFON University training at the time, and I got certified, and then, away I go. And so then by the time 2020 came around, I was appointed assistant director. And at that time I had been already writing a book. And the reason I wrote this book, and it's the one on the right, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, A Beginner's Guide to Researching UFOs. And the reason I did it was because first, I just wanted to kind of encapsulate all the knowledge that I had and put it down on paper. And then, but since 2017, that taboo got lifted from the subject of UFOs, or began to get lifted. And by that time, I got braver, and I said, you know what, I don't care if anybody knows. I'm interested in this. I've had enough proof or evidence that I consider proof that I know this is real, and I'm going to do it. But when 2017 came, it started to break down that taboo. And what my feeling was is that a lot of new people are going to want to participate and learn more and have an interest. And I thought, well, this would be a great time, because for one thing, when you do begin your journey, sometimes you fall down some rabbit holes, right? This topic is pretty widespread. It's got a lot of facets to it, and a lot of hoaxing, a lot of other things I'll talk more about. But so I thought it would be really great maybe to just have like a guidebook for somebody that's getting involved and wants to research this, and learn what the appropriate topics are, learn what the what is good evidence, bad evidence, and just get their a solid foundation as they go through, because they're going to be exposed to a bunch of nonsense too. That's just the facts. So anyways, that was the purpose of my book, is to hopefully help new people come in. And I published it coincidentally in 2020. We all know what happened there with COVID, and I had just been appointed the assistant director, and it was just like a whoa, crazy time. But that's how I ended up where I am today. And it's been a really great ride. So I recommend, do your research, have an open mind, and find something that suits you. And I always say, UFOs, the study of UFOs is almost like a buffet. There's so many aspects to it. You could be, investigation. There's a media side. There's crop circles. There's all these things. You could specialize in any one of them and have a full plate. I personally can't do all of them. Just, my life, I have a large family, I have a horse ranch, and, I'm still working full time. And so I needed to narrow down to what, would serve me the best. And that's how I landed in the UFO investigation. But I encourage everyone, just dive in and see what interests you. And then, if you're the kind of person like me, you want to specialize on something, do it. There is room for everybody, and you will be treated with dignity and respect for the most part. And I find it just fascinating and fun, and just so glad I got involved. So now, with that long-winded background, I wanted to talk about the most important issues when it comes to UFOs or UAP. So one of the big things I think that we all struggle with is terminology. And think about this. You're likely aware that there have been cave paintings of aliens and UFOs. There have been, written documents, the Bible, everything throughout mankind's history where he's recorded things. They've recorded and reported things that we would call today UFOs, but they didn't have that term. And in fact, they didn't even have science in much of that time. And they didn't know how to describe what they were seeing, or they had to describe what they're seeing with the terms that they had, right? So there's this one wood carving from Nuremberg, Germany in the 1500s or whatever, and it depicts what looks like a UFO warfare in the sky, and there's like stars and diamonds and crosses and circles and these various shapes, and some of the terms they use, they said these flying shields in the sky were at war, so again, they just struggled with what do we call this stuff, and I think that persists today, and we still have trouble. So that's kind of the context for this. What is UAP? It started out as unidentified aerial phenomena, and currently it's kind of been repurposed to unidentified anomalous phenomena. And I'm going to talk about that and why. But let me just say, as a preface, this term was actually used in the 1960s by Jenny Randles, who was a very good UFO researcher of the time. And then later, you might have heard Nick Pope, who is a former Ministry of Defense employee who worked the UFO desk. They also kind of co-opted the UAP term. And here's why. So I'll say unidentified aerial phenomena is the new term to describe what was formerly referred to as unidentified flying objects. Why the change? So let me just first say that term was coined by the Air Force in 1953. And it was for the purpose of having a terminology that they could utilize to sort of categorize what was happening. So unidentified, obvious. Flying, that's obvious, and an object. That was what was obvious at the time. However, today, our observation is different. We see things that are more than just those, right? So we see orbs, we see spirals in the sky, we see all sorts of light type pillars of light and just weird stuff, right? All of this phenomena it's a better word to describe now. And if you even think you look at an orb, well, an orb of light isn't necessarily an object. We don't know there's a physical object there. It could just simply be a ball of energy. So I think this term is better, more descriptive or inclusive, but I still have a fondness for UFO. I still think it has some validity. And you're going to see as I go through this presentation, I use them interchangeably. And the only time I get real strict on it is if I'm talking to an audience that I know might be, pretty skeptical. I'll stick with UAP, just not to drag in what this first point is talking about in the presentation, which is over the years, the definition UFO has been lost and a new unscientific context was created. The term UFO soon became synonymous with what? Flying saucer or alien craft, which would ironically be identified. So it's really taken it out of the context. And then it contributed to the topic becoming considered unscientific. And it was ridiculed not only in scientific, but government, military circles, the media, and even by the general public. And I'll say that was by no accident. In 1953, there was a CIA panel formed called the Robertson Panel, who developed a strategy to minimize the public's interest in UFOs because they were being swamped with them at that time. And to ridicule people for showing an interest, and they certainly did that, and it extends clear to this day. Then UAP has a broader definition that describes what is being seen in our skies and space than the term UFO, flying saucer, such as orbs of light, spirals, and other phenomena. So I think the first thing is just getting our terminology straight, understanding what it is and why they use it. And I think it was Arrow, the current UFO report gathering organization in the DoD, is the one that changed it from aerial phenomena to anomalous. And that just benefits them. That gives them more wiggle room, on what is anomalous, right? It could be foreign craft, our own craft. It could be who knows what. So I understand why they do it. So that's the first thing. We got to get our terminology straight. All right. So as an investigator, you first of all have to think about reports. A report is sort of a living, breathing little entity of itself, and it has its own importance and meaning that is unique to it. And I don't mean to sound cryptic, but I'll give you an example. So a report can lead to multiple outcomes. So once investigated, it could be something unknown, could be identified, right? So a report in itself is not necessarily confirmation in the existence of something cited, right? So let's say if we had 5,000 reports, does that equal 5,000 UFOs? No. But it could represent 1,000 or 100 or one, doesn't matter. But, so you have to keep, when we talk about statistics and information related to reports, we've got to remember that they're a contained, self-contained little thing. I think this explanation will help what I'm talking about. So misidentification represents the greatest number of dispositions assigned to UFO cases that have been investigated. And we use the term disposition to say what we've called it, identified or not identified. So misidentification of prosaic objects such as astronomical features, the classic planet Venus or Jupiter, or a star or a meteor or a comet or something like that. That is, a commonly reported thing as a UFO. Aircraft, of course, could be airplanes, helicopters. It could be drones now. Drones are going to be the biggest thorn in our side next to AI. Then, satellites, all those sorts of things. So, and I want to say, when people report these things, we don't look down on them that like you're not intelligent or anything like that. I've been fooled by things. I've seen it. And even as a trained investigator, and I've looked at it, I'm like, wow, that might be something. Then given enough time and effort, realize, it was something prosaic. So it happens. So, and I think it is, people are either, out of their element, normal element, or they're being presented something that they genuinely haven't seen, before. And, it's a legitimate thing, hey, it's unidentified to me. I want to report it. That's cool. We like that it's still helpful to us. But there's also a percentage that are not identifiable. And that's obviously what we're really looking for. Now, you'll see in my presentation, I say that 85% of all reports are explainable. Well, where did I get that? Well, I kind of made it up. And what I made it up from was my body of cases. So I have, a couple hundred cases under my belt. Well, I went through and identified all the ones I dispositioned as unknown and created a percentage of that of the total that I searched. And mine were about 85% when I wrote this. However, be really careful when you hear these percentages and stats, because what was it? Mark Twain said there's little white lies, there's dirty lowdown lies, and then there's statistics. And the point he was making, obviously, is that statistics can be twisted and used to your benefit, right? So somebody could use the very same set of stats to say everything is black, and they'll use the same set to say everything is white. This is just how it goes. You have to take it with a grain of salt, I guess, what I'm saying. And to illustrate that, I want to show you what I've got here. Project Blue Book went from about, I think, 1952-ish to 1969, somewhere in there. And they didn't really investigate. It was largely a PR thing, but they did some investigation. That being said, there's over 12,000 cases. Well, some years later, an organization called the Battelle Institute, it was like a think tank, and has been connected to UFOs from day one. They did what was called Project Blue Book Special Report number 14. And you can actually get a copy of this off the internet. Well, what they did is they analyzed a segment of those 12,000 cases. They did 3,201 cases, you see at the very bottom there. And of those cases, they performed this analysis. So in the left corner, you see the explanation. Out of these 3,201 cases, they had balloons, astronomical, aircraft, miscellaneous, psychological, insufficient info, and unknown. And then the number of those cases there. And then finally, the percentage of the total. So all of the, all but the last two would be your, your 85%-ish stuff, right? The explainable, investigated and prosaic explanation. The two at the bottom are the ones I want to call your attention to. You'll notice the first one, insufficient info. 298, that was 9.3% out of the 3,201. Well, insufficient information basically means we didn't have enough data to either eliminate, oh, sorry, my dogs here are gonna go nuts. They're outside, but they're obnoxious. Of those unknown or those insufficient info, they didn't have enough data. And I think a good example of that is today we see a lot of these lights in the sky. And these lights in the sky are notorious for not producing much data because you just have a little white dot on a black background. You can't do anything with it. And so that makes it extremely difficult. And so that is a case where you would say, look, I don't have enough information to do anything with this. That falls into insufficient info. But now let's look at unknown. And you notice there, 689, 21.5% are unknown. Well, what does unknown mean? It means that they went through their entire investigative process. They eliminated every possibility and couldn't identify it. That is a true unknown. That is where the potential for UFOs to live in that data. And you notice that's 21.3%. Notice mine was 85% or 15% for unknowns. This is 21.5. So I'll just say it depends on the chunk of data that you're using to perform that analysis to get that percentage. And a lot of people today think it's in the 5% range. That could be, I could be off some. It just depends on the cases I've investigated. But the fact is, for every one report that MUFON receives, some people think that's just 1/10. Well, I don't think that. I think it could be 1/100th or 1/1000th of the number of sightings versus report, because who knows where to make a report? And even if they know, would they, right? Because of ridicule and all that kind of stuff, or they just excuse it in their mind because it's too much for them to grasp. So I think it's much, much higher. I think there are millions of sightings, not thousands, but that's just Shane. So, but that's my logic for it. Okay, so as an investigator, you definitely got to be well aware of misidentification. Now, the next one I want to talk about is hoaxes. And hoaxes, I'm sorry, I might swear. I apologize now if I swear talking about this, because it makes me that mad. It fires me up that much. And here's why. Look at the definition of hoax. An act meant to trick or deceive, to cheat. That is not a nice thing. good people don't do that, and I'm going to talk a little bit more why that really irritates me. But when we look at it in terms of reports, hoaxes are a really small percentage, maybe 1, 2, 3% of the reports MUFON gets are designated as hoaxes. And that's a problem, but not a big problem in terms of that. Where it's a big problem is on the internet and in the public's consciousness and mind. Because in the old days, when you wanted to purport a hoax, you either, just told a story, right? Or you had to use some kind of analog way of making it happen, like, throw the Tide pan up in the air and take a photo, or hang one off a fishing line and film it, or whatever, right? Back before digital film. Well, now you can create some plausible UFO things on your telephone, on your cell phone, or on your computer. And with CGI and now AI, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I think there's probably millions of videos out there, and a lot of them are purported to be real. And that's what makes me mad, right? Or they just don't say. They might know darn good and well it's not real, but they don't say, and they let you, make your own decision. But to their credit, there are some folks who do create them and say, hey, this is AI or CGI. And, I'm fine with that. That's cool. I love the art and, the whole concept and movies and all that. So I don't, but if you're trying to pull one over on people, that makes me mad. And the reason they do it is for money. You talk about someone writing a book. You write a book, it takes a lot of time, effort, and money. And only a few thousand people, if you're really lucky, more ever read it. And I think my point being that the net gain from lying about it isn't that great. But with the internet now and YouTube and all those things, you can make big bucks off this stuff, putting it out there, and you don't have to be truthful or anything. So it just maddens me because it muddies the water. And what it does is it creates a boy who cried wolf type of impact. And that gives debunkers this convenient, hey, if one's proven fake, then they're all fake, right? And it's just not true. And it turns a lot of people away and off. And it just, that makes me mad. In fact, I don't know, on Netflix right now, I think there's a documentary series called Trainwrecked. And they take different things that have happened and they do a documentary on it. Well, the one that I'm going to talk about just briefly is I don't know if you guys remember the balloon boy. I think this was in Colorado, good 10, 15 years ago. The family had this balloon they made, and allegedly it got loose, and inside the balloon was supposedly an 8-10-year-old child or whatever, and it flew high and across the state and into other states or something like that. It was pretty, it'd be frightening if it were real. Well, it turns out the kid was hiding in the attic. Well, some hoaxes like this one can result in some very dire consequences. Like, what if they did do it and the kid fell out, right? But whether you're the person getting hoaxed or hoaxing, some bad things can happen. People have lost a great deal because of it. Of course, money, their integrity, relationships, and even their lives. So it's a serious matter. It's a small percentage of reports, but I think it's a big issue in the community. But with social media now, we're all exposed to such garbage and lies and stuff. It's hard to know the truth of anything, but anyway. So, and then my last point here, in a world of inherently ambiguous data, and I mean the UFO world, the last thing I need is some jerk trying to interfere with that search of the truth by me, by lying, deceiving, and cheating me out of it. That's what makes me mad. There's nothing good about a hoax. It's just bad stuff. All right. Now, this is sort of the meat of the investigative process. So if you look at the chart on the side, it just quickly cites the the process. You ask a question, right? And let me just say that the science method process in which science is performed, doesn't matter the type, it could be chemistry, it could be physics, you know, it could be medicine, it doesn't matter. This is the method. This is what elevated us from, you know, the Dark Ages and depending on religion to tell us what things meant, right? This is so important. Now, I don't hold science as a religion. I don't worship or anything like that. I'm just saying it's a very practical method for identifying true from false. That's all it is, but it works. So, and how it works is it can build on previous knowledge and develop a more sophisticated understanding of its topic of study over time. So you ask a question or you make an observation, right? Then you do background research. You say, huh, I wonder what that was. Well, let me look around and see. Then you construct a hypothesis. You say, hey, I think that was a UFO. Then you test it by doing, hey, I'm going to go out there tomorrow night at the same time in the same place and see if I can, yes or no. Okay, that's sort of what you do. Then you analyze the data. Nothing showed. Or yeah, it came up again. And then, you know, you might talk about it with friends or family or you know, an investigator or something. And then, you know, you find out whether your hypothesis was right or not. And if it wasn't, then you go all the way to the beginning. So let me read these bullet points. So the process involves making a hypothesis, deriving predictions from them as logical consequences, and then carrying out experiments based on those predictions to determine whether the original prediction was correct. Now, the problem with UFOs, they don't come when we want them to. We can't go get one and bring it in the lab and look at it, right? We're at the mercy of it showing up when and where. So it makes applying this scientific process difficult in that regard. And that's the rub of it. It's tough to even observe because of its random appearance. Now, the scientific method requires intelligence, imagination, and an open mind. And I want to say that because scientists themselves can be closed-minded. And that is not a healthy thing, even from a scientific perspective, because the object of the scientific method is to convert an unknown into a known. And you have to have an open mind to do that. And of course, intelligence goes with scientific, right? And having some imagination. So it's not a fixed set of standards and procedures to follow. It's a guideline. And it's an ongoing cycle. It's iterative. You just do it over and over and over. And you constantly develop more useful and accurate and comprehensive models and methods. So one illustration I like to say is, look, mankind, we first mastered fire, right? And then, you know, as our technology improved, then we were able to master electricity, you know, amazing. Probably the greatest invention for humankind is the generation and distribution of electricity. It's changed everyone's life. And then we learned how to split the atom, you know, good or bad, we have done that. Well, all of that are just steps in this iterative process that leads us to where we are now. That's the scientific method. So, and I think that that's the only way that we're going to yield quantitative and qualitative data that can be taken seriously and will lead to a defendable theory and ultimately the identification of UAP. And I think we're really seeing that happen right now, that with Congress and Arrow and the whole, you know, taking away the taboo. You have many scientists now involved, you know, the SCU, Scientific Coalition for UFO Studies, all scientists, you know, studying this stuff. There's many organizations like that, and it's getting more and more widespread. You guys have probably seen Avi Loeb, even the chief astronomer for Harvard, you know, is professing the possibility of, you know, extraterrestrial contact. So I applaud him in his being open-minded, and having some imagination and applying it to this topic. So, and that's the only way we're all going to come to agreement on what it is. And frankly, that's a problem with humans and with truth. Truth is not absolute. The truth is something is only when we all agree to accept it as such, when you think about it, right? So it's tough to prove stuff. One person's proof is not another. So we have a big challenge, absolutely. But the scientific method is critical. It doesn't care about any of the politics or religious thinking. It doesn't care about conspiracies and all that. It just goes through its iterative process and yields the results we need. Okay, let me just check my time here. All right, we're good. So one of the most important things that you try to achieve or gain in the investigation process is the forms of evidence, and they're not all equal. And I know I just kind of alluded to that, with proof, you have evidence and you have proof. And evidence is a lower standard, but it's very suggestive, and it can become truth if it's accepted that way. So you always have this movement from unknown to evidentiary to proof. It is a natural kind of process, and that's what happens. But it depends on the evidence. So forms of evidence that provide data and information that will help yield an identification of UAP or eliminate prosaic explanations, eyewitness accounts, trace evidence, photo, video, and radar imagery. And I wanted to make this, a part of my book and of this presentation for the new people coming in, because that's you have to perform an analysis of the data yourself, right? You can't just completely depend on others to tell you what to think. You've got to go through it yourself. And in order to do that, you really need to be able to look at what is evidence, what is false, what is true, and what is provable. So that's why I really make this point. So let's talk a little bit about these forms of evidence. Pilots, police officers, scientists, military members, government officials can be credible eyewitnesses. And when you think about the investigation process, there's a couple pillars to it. The first one is the eyewitness account. And it's the most important, because you know why? Without it, you wouldn't have a case. You wouldn't have a report. Okay, so it's absolutely mandatory and critical. You have a eyewitness account. However, eyewitness accounts are probably the least reliable forms of evidence. Unless you have something else that backs it up, it's just a story, right? Okay, so the reason pilots and police and scientists are good witnesses because they're trained observers. They're trained to look at things objectively. And that's a really great skill and can help you weed out the prosaic and the non. I listed government officials from a different perspective. Government officials, they're politicians, and what people think of them is, everything, right? It's life or death for them, politically speaking, in their career or whatever. And if a government official comes out and says, "Hey, I saw this," that's a really big deal. They have the most among the people who have the most to lose. So some pretty classic ones: Jimmy Carter in 1976, he became president of the United States, but prior to that, in Georgia, he and some other people outside of, I think, Elks Lodge or something meeting that they had, and they saw this, UFO, and he reported it. He actually submitted a report, and that was a big risk for him, and it ultimately didn't cost him, but big risk. Leslie Kane's book, as I mentioned, government officials going on the record. These guys have a lot to lose, so I take their testimony credibly. They're not being a hoax. They're not trying to get attention. Now, they may still not have seen a real UFO, but they believe that they have seen something unidentified. And so I find that to be very critical. So very important, eyewitness testimony. And MUFON teaches us skills to help suss out, fakery or, mistaken things and all those things. But we value every eyewitness testimony. We give those folks the greatest, respect and treat them well, even if it ends up being something prosaic. So it's very important. Now, here's the good stuff if you can get it. So most cases are an eyewitness and a photo or a video. That's probably 85% what we get in terms of, reporting. But there are those cases where there's trace evidence. What is trace evidence? Well, it's anything physical. So imagine this: UFO comes down, lands, breaks through the branches of the trees, hits the ground, or lands on the ground. Yeah, broken branches, that's trace evidence. You might have radioactivity on the trees or the ground around it. That's trace evidence. You might have chemical residue, trace evidence. You might have a big gouge in the soil, trace evidence. You might have burnt plants and trees, again, physical evidence. And if you can get it, wow, that really gives you something scientifically you can sink your teeth into. So it's extremely valuable, but it's also pretty rare. We don't get a lot of landing or crash cases. And for obvious reasons, those get swept away to the military or whatever, or we don't get to hear about them. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about photo, video, and radar imagery. Now, here's the thing. Photos and videos, as we've already talked about, can be falsified. They can be faked and they can be extremely convincing. However, MUFON investigators are trained how to discern that. And we even have what's called a PAT, photo analysis team in MUFON, of highly skilled members who can break down these images, these videos, these photos, and discern whether they've been faked or not. Still doesn't tell you what they were, what was videoed, but it can tell you that it's a legitimate video, it hasn't been tampered with and all that. But you need the rest of the investigation to put things together, right? So, but on the other hand, we fight that battle of constant, fakery. Now, radar imagery is different. This is cool. Radar imagery is in the hands of the FAA and the military, right? And these are very expensive, sophisticated systems, which mean there's only approved people who can operate them. They are constantly patched, repaired, kept, in good working order, calibrated, all of those things, because it's life or death for aircraft, right? So radar imagery, I think, has a high degree of credibility. Now, again, it doesn't tell you exactly what you're seeing, but it's confirming that you are seeing something. And so to me, it's very important if you can get your hands on it, which we can, usually we can. So here's my point though. If we ever do identify UAP, or if it is disclosed by a government, I think the imagery will no doubt play a part in the authentication of UAP. It'll just depend on the circumstances and who's presenting it as evidence. So I make this point because as an investigator, somebody goes, "Oh, Shane, look at this cool video." I look at it and I go, "Yeah, that's cool." But that's all it is. It's a cool video. I mean, you have to go through an investigative process in order to determine whether it's worth its salt or not. But I believe that when the time comes, when disclosure, and I will talk about disclosure later, but you're going to have photo and video for people, because you can't bring 8 billion people to the White House lawn or whatever, if that's how it happens, right? So you've got to have it, but it'll be all the circumstances, who's presenting it, and other things that will, get you to where, you can accept it. Okay. Classic cases. So some cases have strong photographic evidence, some have compelling trace evidence, some are interesting because of who the eyewitnesses were and the testimony that they gave. But the point is that each case has strengths and weaknesses when it comes to evidence. So here's just a few that I find compelling, and you might already be aware of them, but if you're not, go look them up, and they're just terrific. So Los Angeles in 1942, and that's the photo I have there. where those are spotlights, presumably pointed at an object. Those little flashes of light around it are the artillery shells being fired off around it. And that was in the newspaper in 1942 in Los Angeles. And it's really a compelling case, a lot of the stuff that goes with it. But that case has a great photo, right? Then Roswell in 1947, that's the granddaddy of them all. It seems to have a little bit of everything. Washington, D.C. in 1952, great case. Again, radar imagery played a big role in it. They scrambled airplanes, that whole thing. Socorro, New Mexico, 1964. This was a case where a police officer engaged this thing. Again, high credibility on his part. He was on duty when this happened. And there was trace evidence and stuff. In fact, this is a case that swayed J. Allen Hynek from skeptic to believer. Travis Walton in 1975 here in Arizona. And I'm very well acquainted with Travis. We've done camping and all that kind of stuff. And I've heard his story 1,000 times. And you know what? That story has never changed. He is such a credible guy in that he is non-sensationalistic. And I've even seen him shut people down who try to sensationalize his story. He said, no, that's not how it is. It was just this, you know. So I find that really compelling too, because this abduction case had 7 eyewitnesses. Those 7 eyewitnesses had 3, count them, 3 lie detector tests each, and they all passed. One came back inconclusive and was a 17-year-old kid who was, you know, scared out of his wits, and he still was inconclusive, wasn't lying. So the odds of 7 people taking 21 different tests and all lying through them is 0, net 0. So that is such a compelling thing. Let's see, the Phoenix Lights, as I mentioned, in 1997 here in Arizona, you know, tens of thousands, probably millions of people saw them, multiple things traversing diagonally across the entire state. Jets were scrambled. It's just a crazy case. Has a little bit of everything, but to me, largest mass sighting, and that makes it really a classic case. And then, of course, the 2004 Nimitz case, and now the 2015 Roosevelt cases. And those were military, radar systems, spy systems, recorded all this. Yeah, thermal imagery, optical imagery, other sorts of imagery that we probably don't know about. A lot of facets to that where there's good data and very searchable. And so that was great. So the Socorro case has strong physical evidence. That thing landed, left marks in the ground, burnt plants. The plants were still hot and smoking, you know, that whole thing. Phoenix Light contains video and photo evidence as well as eyewitness testimony from, you know, a mass amount of observers. The Los Angeles case provides historical documentation, photos, witness testimony. Roswell has a little of everything. The DC case, strong radar and eyewitness and documentation. And Travis Walton's case is truly unique in all its forms of evidence, and which is uncommon in abduction cases. So pretty fascinating. So here's one thing I want to talk about, the wheat and chaff of ufology. And I alluded to it earlier. I'm talking about the information that's out there. And like any topic of study, you're going to have disagreement. There's going to be many reasons for this, such as, you know, interpretations of the data, what it means, disinformation, misinformation, religious fear, debunkery, hoaxes, fear of ridicule, cognitive dissonance, scientific skepticism, gullibility, and carelessness. All of these things contribute to this mass of information that ranges from complete and total lies and to misunderstanding things to, you know, absolutely the truth. So the question is, especially for a new person, newly interested, and you're trying to get into this thing, is, you know, how do you distinguish what is legitimate and not? Well, it's like everything else in life. You need to think critically for yourself. And I would recommend assume what you're looking at, your first blush at this thing is it's false, right? Not true, but false. And then work back from there. Okay, if this were to be true, what would I need in order to, you know, identify that? Well, you know, there's a variety of things. So when someone says, I know this or that, your BS meter should be pegging, right? None of us know anything, honestly, until we have, you know, have the absolute proof. It's, you know, good scientifically obtained evidence, but proof, that's pretty hard. And when I say, I also have to qualify this. I'm an experiencer now. And so I always say there's nothing like to make you a believer in UFOs like seeing one, right? If you're an experiencer, you are not a believer, you're a knower. You are a knower. And I'm sure there's some of you in that audience that I'm speaking to right now. And I have the greatest respect for that. And I have also had that same experience. So if a person is engaging in legitimate and sincere effort to research the UAP topic, why is it some offense against humanity to earn money to do so? Now, I bring this up because especially debunkers and skeptics and stuff, they like to, I guess it was Stan Friedman who said, you know, if they can't attack the data, they attack the person delivering it, right? And this is common. And it applies to ufology too. And so one of the criticisms is, oh, they're just in it to make a buck. Well, okay, if you're legitimate and true and you're making a buck at it, I'm fine with that. Why shouldn't you? You put in your hard-earned time, money, and effort to something. And if it's a legitimate way to get the money back, you know, write a book and you earn money from it, that's great. Now, if you wrote a book that's complete bilge water and not true, and you know it, and you put it out there as true, and you know, that's bad, right? That's not right. But so what I'm saying is, just because someone is making a buck at it, don't automatically assume that they're disingenuous, you know. Now, there are some who are. So again, you know, my biggest thing is multi-source everything. If you think you got something, share it with somebody. Hey, what do you think? And what do you think? You know, credible people. Give it to some skeptics. Give it to some true believers. Give it to your colleagues, whatever, and get the input. And then you can, you know, multi-sourcing it usually brings out the truth in the matter. So that's my recommendation there for sure. Now, cover up. I'm just gonna say the cover up is real. There's no doubt this has been covered up. And now it's so public, it's almost nonsense to talk about anymore. But a cover up is generally thought to be an attempt to hide information to prevent knowledge of this information by others. Likely the purpose is to hide a failure to protect from perceived harm or to control others, right? And cover-ups can be they can be positive or negative. So let me give you an example. Whether it's a family, a corporation, or a government, organizations have issues that they wish to keep private. And it's not necessarily a conspiracy, which incidentally is defined as a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or unharmful or harmful. So look at it this way, you know, I have a fight with my wife. I'm not going to go tell my best friend about it or, you know, go on Facebook and gripe about, you know, we don't air our dirty laundry. That's not a conspiracy. It's a cover up. Yeah, I'm not making that known to everybody because it would be embarrassing for me and my family. And frankly, you might develop a very negative attitude towards me or my wife because of what the details were, but I love my wife and I know that I'm going to get over whatever the fight was and we'd be happy as clams, you know, but other people wouldn't, right? They don't love me, they don't love her. So it does some damage, right? So we don't do that. That's not how we conduct ourselves as individuals or a family. And governments or corporations, they have, you know, they have trade secrets they want to protect, things like that. So just because there's a government cover-up doesn't mean that it's, a conspiracy or that it's, unjustified. So the US government has a long documented and provable interest in participation in the UAP phenomena, despite their claims. So their cover-up, there's facets that are legitimate. We need to protect our methods and our sources and that kind of thing. Our technology, we don't want that to get out because our enemies could do us some harm. That's legitimate, and I want them to do that, right? We want them to protect our nation. But on the other hand, there are cover-ups of things that are negative and that they shouldn't cover up, right? So a big thing in government today is, transparency, transparency. Well, they're only going to be transparent on the things that they think won't hurt them, right? The rest, they're going to continue to cover up. So, and we find ourselves in that situation with UAP right now. Finally, a cover-up, both for legitimate and illegitimate reasons, is a proven and real aspect of the UAP phenomena. It's not a crazy conspiracy theory. It's very, very real. All right, so I'm at 1 hour right now. I have got just 2 more slides. So if you guys are cool, we'll go another 15 minutes and then we'll take our break. What I wanted to talk about was the political science of ufology. One of the things I always say about UFOs is really about people. I just think about that for a minute. Why would I say that? Well, you probably heard the illustration, hey, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it really make any noise? Well, the fact is the tree crashes through and, the impact of that creates like 300 meter per second compression of air, and it goes out in all directions. It's making noise, right? That happens. So with human beings, if UFOs have no contact with human beings and we have no knowledge of it, would they have any importance? Not to us, right? In other words, their interaction with us, we are what's important. I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I mean, we're humans, we're anthropocentric, and I'll talk about that term. We can only see things as humans see things. We don't have the capability of seeing things from the perspective of unknown life forms. It's just not going to happen, right? Until we engage with them and learn. So what is anthropocentrism? According to Webster, it's defined as interpreting or regarding the world in terms of human values and experiences. We see and interpret everything from our point of view. And it's logical, but it can be limiting and accounts for some of our myopathy, right? It really does. And government UAP denial is not only based on national security issues, but on the governments of the world's fears of losing their sovereignty to the others. So that's the point of this political science. That at the time this was written, this paper called Sovereignty in the UFO, there was no TED Talks, there was no widespread acceptance of UFOs. They wrote this in the time of the taboo, which blows my mind. And these two guys, Alexander Wendt and Raymond Duval, wrote this white paper about, they were curious about the political science of UFOs and the public's response to them, be it individuals or governments. And in particular, they were focusing on governments. In other words, why do the governments act like they're acting? This makes no sense, right? If there's a flying saucer right there, wouldn't we want to know about it? Why are they excusing it away and telling you to, oh, it's just your, and that is a great question and very fascinating and very important. And so they did this white paper on it. And again, you can download it off the internet for free. It's about 70 pages. And frankly, some of it's over my head, this political science stuff, but much of it is definitely understandable. And one of the main points that I took away from it, why does our government and other governments resist making this known? Well, their thinking was that we live in a world order of nations with boundaries, and we have our little domains of power and control. And if others come who are clearly more powerful than all of the governments on earth, what will the inhabitants of all of those countries, those nations, do? What would they think about their leaders and their power versus that of these newcomers, right? They fear that greatly. That there is nothing more important to a government in keeping its sovereignty, and this is a threat to that sovereignty. So that can explain a lot of the government's reaction and behavior towards UFOs. And I just think that's absolutely critical to understand, and it is playing out before our very eyes right now. Okay, so this is kind of my summary page here. Following the evidence. So essentially, belief is the acceptance of something as true without the proof, right? Again, me, a religious guy, going back, I spent 50 years in religion. And, you know, belief is a big component of it, or faith. And it essentially is defined as just believing in something without proof that it's true or real. And I don't mean to just pick on religion. We do that with a lot of things. And in fact, it's necessary. It's ingrained in us as part of our cogency, our logic. It's a natural process of learning. And even in the scientific method, because I kind of can liken belief to the theory part of the scientific process. You have some information and you form an opinion of what that is, but you know, it's a gap, right? So we have certain knowns, touchstones that are knowns, but there's gaps between them. Well, to move an idea forward, you got to fill the gap just because our brain requires it. So we make stuff up to put in the gap, knowing that it may not be true, but it's enough for us to get to the next stage, right? And I mean, that's kind of hard to grasp, but I think that it's just the natural process of learning, is to have belief. But eventually belief gets replaced with proof and knowledge and knowing. So, but here's the danger with belief. Human beings tend to allow belief to rise to the level of truth when it's not warranted. Okay, so that's a big problem. And we see it today, right? I'm going to kill you because you don't believe in my God. I don't believe in your God. You know, that's a worse example I could think of, right? Or wars fought over, hey, you know, you believe this and I believe this is the case, and that we don't agree, and now we're going to go to war and kill people, right? That's the worst of the worst of it. But we encounter this kind of thing in our daily lives. So one of the dangers, especially if it comes to being an investigator and you lean too heavily on your belief or bias, then you can really miss important facts if you're not looking, because you think you already know, and you can miss it. So it's pretty consequential. And then the most effective way to manage the credibility of any case or information is following that evidence. No one can justifiably refute a proven fact. They can still refute it, but not justifiably. And as MUFON investigators, we need to be balanced and unbiased, while also being compassionate and treating our witnesses with dignity and respect. So my book is available on Amazon. You can just type my name in. I think it's $14.95. I'm not here to push my book. It's something I did. I'm proud of it, and you know, my grandkids have it. You know, I made my mark. I left my mark in the world, so I'm thrilled with it from that perspective. This is not about money for me. It'd been great if I made money, but But anyway, so then I see Anna's ready to go here. If we take that break, then when we come back, I have about a 15-minute slideshow I'd like to show you guys, and then we can ask all the questions you want. Okay, great. So there's just a few minutes. These are just cases that I've had, you know, my MUFON cases, and things that I kind of find interesting. They're not all unknown, but they're still of interest. And so let me start with this one. This is Jerome, Arizona in 2019. It's a small mining town. Everybody goes up there, you know, you have a hotel and restaurant and some things. and there's a viewpoint that everyone goes to take a picture, and this is it. And this is a photo. And this actually is an unknown and probably my best case. And as you can see there, pretty interesting object, close up of it there. And there's a big long story to it, but I want to take up too much time on it. But it is one of my favorite cases. That image appeared. I'll share this much. When you take a photo on an iPhone in live mode, it's actually a 2.5 second video, and a frame rate is 30 per second. So a 2.5 second video is 75 frames. And in this case, this this image appeared in one frame, 1/30th of a second. In the lower right hand of this, on the original image, a little moth flew in and out. When I did a frame by frame analysis, I could see, it took like 6 or 8 frames to get in and then 6 or 8 frames to get out, kind of a thing. This thing did none of that. It was literally blinked in and blinked out. So pretty bizarre. Let's see. Okay, this was in 2020, a flight over Arizona. The RP was reporting these big flying saucers on the ground. What that turned out to be is called Ivanpah Solar Generating Plant. And it's 2 or 3 huge circles of solar panels on the ground. And they're very reflective, obviously. And this happens kind of frequently. People flying from Phoenix to Vegas or Phoenix to LA, we get a couple of reports a year, but we know that this is what that is. But still kind of cool looking. This one, this was in downtown Phoenix. This one was a photographer, professional photographer from Colorado, and he was at the Arizona, museum, the Arboretum, and he saw this thing and he got a photo off on it. And I could never figure out what it was. There was no planes or anything in the area at the time. So that was pretty fascinating. I don't know if you guys are probably familiar with Skinwalker Ranch. Well, there's a comparable place here in Arizona called Bradshaw Ranch. And it's got a long history of really bizarre stuff. And people still go there and investigate it now. In fact, I would like to myself. But and then this, let's see here. What did I do? This guy is taken also from the ranch, and it's a weird orb, just it is weird. So this was on the ranch as well. And you can see what's weird about this is that it's clearly behind that fence netting, and it's very foggy looking, and then it clearly comes through on the front side of it. But there's so much reflection from the image, it's tough to tell what it was. So I didn't know what it was, but it could have been a bug or of some sort, but it's really weird looking, even in terms of the kind of images we see with bugs and birds all the time. So I just thought that was interesting. Let's see, I'm going the wrong way. That was also on Bradshaw Ranch. Then this one, you guys might recognize this. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but this is actually one of the earlier SpaceX launches from California, Vandenberg. And you can see the initial cone here is the tip of the rocket. And this is the first stage that's on its way back to go landing. So that's why it looks so weird. And now it's common, but at the time in 2016, it was pretty novel. I live in Desert Hills, Arizona here. This was only 3 miles from my house. And I got the case and I went out there, investigated. By law, you have to, if you find, dead livestock, you have to contact the sheriff and the Department of Agriculture, which I did. And they, I had it all cordoned off, and I was armed, out there in the desert. And I had my cameras set up and everything. And when they came, they were just like looking at me like I was from Mars. But I explained to them what I was doing and why, and they thought it was actually pretty cool. And ultimately, there was no way for us to tell if this was just simply predation or if there was something unusual. But you can see there's no blood or any tracks or prints. It could be as much as a month old there, but this is pretty unusual the way this is nipped off. And it's not usual to have the head carried off. And I did at least 1,000-foot perimeter search through the desert to see if I could find any trace of it, and couldn't. So I thought that was pretty weird. It's another shot of it there. Looks like it got tangled up in this is like a dead cactus, but that's suspicious to me too. I just don't understand what happened.
Okay, now what the hell is that big old bright light sitting up over the mountains again, just sitting there, not doing anything? It's not a helicopter. There are no red or green lights stating port or starboard. I don't know what it is, but it's been there since I started my walk.
So that was unknown. Here's another unknown. Pretty brief, but pretty weird. Here's a good one. This was a young couple taking their kid to school Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., driving by this field and saw this. So they pulled over and filmed it. They had a good 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes of video of it. I just grabbed a little excerpt. And again, don't know what that was. However, there's an orbital TK and a Raytheon plant nearby. So I thought potentially they had some maybe new kind of drone or something they were testing, but they wouldn't even let me in the door. They weren't giving me anything. So
I don't know what it is. It's like how far away is it? I mean, hard to determine the distance.
yeah, they enjoyed that. They thought that was pretty cool.
I think it depends on the size of it.
Saucer kind of. The top is round and it's got.
I mean, when you look at it outside of the camera, looks. Is this one here like a sphere? Is that what we're looking
Yeah,
at?
I think it's spherical. In my investigation, I tried to find spherical drones or balloon drones, and there was at that time a little bit out there, but didn't look like that. But it's just kind of inconclusive. That's the frustration, comes with it. But yeah, I'll send you this. This was my sighting on my ranch in 2016. And it was back when the iPhone they had limited memory. And I'm not joking it, the 1 minute mark, it ran out of disk space. And so what this thing eventually did is it just went straight up and punched through the cloud, but I didn't capture that part on video. And I submitted it as a case, and the investigator said, oh, it's a drone. But this was 2016, and it was like 5:30 a.m. on a Thursday morning. And I'm thinking, unless some kid got his drone, Wednesday night and couldn't go fly it and had to just go out in the morning, do it. I mean, I don't know if that's a drone. And it does some weird behavior there. But at any rate, I realized that the quality is tough for you guys to see this stuff. But I just wanted to present those, just some interesting, fun things. All right, that's about it. And do you want to do the questions?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Go ahead, Anna.
We will open it up to questions. If you are new, one of the things that we like to do is we like to make sure that everybody has a chance to ask their questions. So we take one question from each location. So we'll start in Grand Rapids, we'll go to online, and then we'll come back to Fargo. Feel free to ask a follow-up question, but if you have a lot of questions, we might ask you to hold off just so other people get a chance. So any questions in Grand Rapids?
Yep, come on up.
And also, if you're not comfortable with being on video, that's just fine. We'll just ask you to come up. We won't have you on the camera, and we'll have you ask the question.
Hey Shane, thanks so much for your presentation. It was awesome. I was wondering how many craft were visible or sighted during the Phoenix lights?
It was several. So that's a great question, because there's a little bit of discrepancy. So multiple craft were seen, and some as large as people claim that you could put 10 747s on one wing, and then others were smaller, and some were delta shaped like a triangle, some were boomerang shaped. But there were several, and as I mentioned earlier, they went across the entire state of Arizona. And in fact, believe it or not, the MUFON, we meet at the Arizona Historical Society Museum, and there is an exhibit for the Phoenix Lights that MUFON helped develop in Arizona's Historical Society Museum, which I think is fascinating, But one of the things that I like about the exhibit, they have this big poster board on the wall, and they have a pin where every phone call was made to police, whatever calls were made, they tracked, and they put a pin in it with the time. And when they went through the whole thing, the entire trajectory of this main object was just highlighted by, hey, Paulden, Arizona, 656, Prescott, 702, whatever. I mean, it was almost like radar, it was able to track by the phone calls and stuff. But yeah, multiple people saw multiple craft. It was a big deal. It was what I like to say is it was a parade, exactly what it was. It was low, it was slow, and it wasn't frightening or intimidating, but it was awe-inspiring. And it was fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone online have a question? If you do, please put it in the chat. You can just say, I have a question, and we'll let you come on and ask your question live. Or if you don't want to be on video again, feel free to just put it in the chat. So I'm not seeing anybody yet. So we do have a question here in Fargo, and I will have him come ask his question.
Thanks, Graham. Hi. So my question is, so do you think if the government did release that extraterrestrials are real, do you think that could lead to an Armageddon or / catastrophe to human society?
So obviously that's a possibility, but I look at the fact that we've been engaging with them for thousands of years, and in the modern UFO era, let's say Roswell, 1947, they've been engaging us for 80 years. If they wanted to harm us or hurt us, it could have been done long ago,
Yeah.
especially when we were less capable of responding. But now with our technology and our scientific knowledge, maybe maybe it's more like a Star Trek scenario where you come across new worlds, but the prime directive, you don't mess with them until they get to a certain level of technology. You'd freak them out or whatever. So anything's possible. But my gut feeling, and with everything I've learned, I would say they're not here to harm us intentionally or overtake us or anything. I don't anticipate that.
I mean, I don't think they're gonna harm us or overtake us. I'm just thinking if it is revealed that humans will not accept that, because there's a lot of like Catholics and Protestants and evangelicals who believe that the extraterrestrials are not real because we were made out of God's image. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, if and when that happens, you're going to have some of that, you know. However, I want to illustrate a point to you with this, and you know, it breaks my heart to use this as an illustration, but let's take school shootings, for example. Remember the first one, Columbine, and man, the entire world went nuts over that. And it was on the news every night for months and months, and back and forth for years. And it was a great big deal. Well, do you know that we've had over 200, 300 maybe school shootings this year? About it, right? What I'm illustrating is that, look, as human beings, we have a hierarchy of priorities, you know, food, clothing, and shelter, right? Survival. And frankly, when something terrible happens or something fun or interesting or whatever grips our attention, how long does it really last? A couple of weeks, you know? But why? Well, because reality is I got to go to work. I got to take the kids to school. I got to pay my mortgage. You know, those things consume that space rather quickly. So to your point, if the government revealed this, and, you know, certain segments of society would have a reaction, but I think it would be short-lived. And the majority of people are so now acquainted with the idea of aliens and others that, yes, there will be natural fear and some reaction, but I don't think it's the end of our society. And that's the reason why.
Thank you. Do we have any questions in Grand Rapids?
Okay, I'll read this one here, but anybody else got any questions? No? Okay. Let's see if I can frame this right on how you want to ask it. You have written down here, how to reconcile with religious beliefs, how affected. I guess you're asking if the time comes for disclosure, how do you think people will reconcile that with their religious beliefs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I got a couple of thoughts on that. So for one, in 2008, the head astronomer of the Vatican. So first of all, the Vatican has astronomers. In fact, it's one of the world's largest telescopes, is owned by the Vatican right here in Arizona. And he was asked, what are you going to do if aliens turn up as real? And I thought he had the most brilliant answer I ever heard from a religious leader, because usually they start backpedaling, right? He just flat out said, well, we'll be happy to baptize them too. He completely deflated all of the arguments, all of the what ifs and the buts, and just said, what he basically said is, we'll accept it. No big deal, you know? And I think that position is the smartest position, because, you know, if you're religious and you have a belief and that belief gets proven incorrect, there's that concept of cognitive dissonance. You can't process that. And I think organizations actually can behave in that same way. So I think we will see some of that. We'll see some backpedaling. We'll see some unrest. People will have their faith shaken. But on the other hand, I think a lot of people understand that religious belief it doesn't necessarily have to be true. It makes them feel good, right? And religion accomplishes a lot of goals. They help, you know, keep society in a constructed way, right? And we probably all know people or have heard of people who had a real rough way of life and they got religious and it cleaned up their life, and that, you know, great, that's good. You know, that's a beneficial thing for society. So it's going to probably be across the board. I think you'll see a lot of reactions, but I think they'll be short-lived. And for the most part, people are going to accept what happens. And frankly, you don't have any other choice.
That answer your question? Yeah, okay.
Anyone else online have a question? I don't see anything in the chat right now. How about here in Fargo? Come on up, we got a question here in Fargo. For you folks online, if you have a question, just put it in the chat or just say, I have a question, and we'll see who you are and we'll call on you.
Well, hi, Shane.
Hey.
Really appreciate the presentation. It's been great, and I definitely appreciate your emphasis on using the scientific method. I think the focus needs to be on that all the time, I think. Just a comment really quickly. I think that we may be having trouble using the scientific method due to like the observer effect. I mean, we may be dealing with something intelligent that's actively trying to avoid detection, and the very act of observing something, I mean, you have a science background, may influence or change its behavior. So, and who knows, it may be something non-physical, something we don't even understand, maybe using technology way beyond ours, so there's no chance you could actually detect it, like that one frame in the video. That was fascinating. My question for you is, you mentioned that you had sort of a change in your thinking, or more like a validation with personal experiences. Would you be interested in sharing any of that, or comfortable?
Yeah, I can. So when I got into this study of UFOs, I was very much what's called a nuts and bolts investigator. I was like, what is that metal machine in the sky right there that nobody can identify? That makes me so curious, right? That was my motivation. But as I learned more and gained experience, I realized that is just one aspect of the phenomena. It's bigger than that. And you've kind of alluded to some of it. Some people call it the woo-woo, right? Like the old science movies, woo, the woo-woo, which is really the non-physical stuff. Consciousness falls into that. Interdimensionality, as you mentioned. There are a lot of aspects to the phenomena that are more than mere physical. And through my education and experience, I began to realize that and said, wow, I wanted to stay away from the woo because of my religious background. I had a bias about that. Ooh, I don't want to be involved with that. It's demons or something like that. But then I realized, wait a minute, it's not that. And it's very important and a big part of that. And so, and in all honesty, MUFON really prefers to stay away from that side of it. They want to be seen as, just a UFO investigative organization. So I have to be careful. What I'm about to tell you, it's not sanctioned UFO, MUFON. This is Shane personal and the people I know. Once a month, we gather together a bunch of people. So again, I have a horse ranch here, and people come over like one Saturday a month, and we do some CE5, and we do some paranormal stuff, voice box, ghost box, dowsing rods, these other things. I would never in my wildest imagination have thought that I would be involved with such things when I first got into this, but yet here I am now. But I don't take it lightly. And I think there is good, strong scientific evidence for it. I have videos of strange things. I have recordings. I have thermal imagery of very strange things. All of these things are clearly part of the UFO part. You can't untangle them. They're tangled together. So the question is, well, then what does that mean? And that's why UAP as a term better represents what's happening, because this weird stuff, high strangeness, accompanies it. It's hard to explain. So, but again, so my position is I am open to anything. So my new policy is, look, anything is possible until it's proven not to be. Right. And I think that's a scientific viewpoint, but that's a viewpoint formulated on my experience, especially with what you would consider not scientific. It to
Yeah,
me,
gotta keep an open mind.
you
Yeah.
got to keep an open mind because it's real. What it is, I don't know. I cannot tell you what any of this is, but I know that it is. And I engage it, I record it, I'm trying to learn from it, and I'm engaging others. And some of the people that come are psychics, remote viewers, you know, intelligence folks. It's a pretty eclectic group of people that range from skeptical to true believers. One of my good friends, he was a Phoenix Lights experiencer, and a couple of others as well. So it's bigger than we imagine, but what it is, I don't know. But I'm
Thank you.
open-minded for it.
Great answer. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
So is
Anybody?
there any questions in Rapids?
No, I think we can move to online.
Okay, so I do see a couple of questions in the chat, and I did see Darlene raise her hand. If other people have raised their hand online, I can only see Darlene's. I can't see everybody that's online. So again, try and put it in the chat, but we'll go to Darlene.
Hello, Shane. I wanted to thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Oh, thank you.
And I have to tell you, I just sneezed a few minutes ago and my nose is like bothering me. So as I talk, you may hear a sniffle or two. I wanted to comment on what you said about Travis Walton. I met him about 25 years ago. I'm from South Florida. He was what you said, 17, and when he had the incident in 1975, did some math. He was about 42 years old at that time. And I was 25 years younger than I am now. But he was going around to a very large known bookstore giving a talk on his book. And so they advertised it, the neighborhood bookstore. And I said, well, I am going to be there to watch him give his presentation. And tell you why. One, I'm an experiencer. And two, I've worked for the federal government for many, many years as an investigator, trained in doing investigations. Okay, so I've had a lot of background in watching deceptive and original, truthful behavior. So I walk into the bookstore to hear his lecture, and he's sitting over in a side, and there are all these metal folding chairs folded, and there's probably a good 25 or 30 of them. And I walk in and I'm standing at the back, and there were quite a few empty chairs. And I said, that won't do. I'm kind of bold. And I made my way up to the very front row, which every seat was taken. And I sat down about a foot from his right foot on the floor. So I could watch every movement, everything he was saying about what happened to him. And this is 25 years after the incident. He explained how he couldn't talk about it for a long time and went into hiding. People ridiculed him terribly. And after he hid for a long time, he sought psychiatric help. And now he wrote a book. I don't know if the movie had been made or not, but now he's traveling and doing presentations on his book. And he talked about what happened. Well, I sat there glued to his face, his eyes, his arms, his moving, squirming, whatever in the chair. And 25 years after that incident, he was still struggling to say what had happened to him. So with my background and watching him, etc., there is not a doubt in my mind that what happened to him, that he says happened to him. And so I just thought I'd bring that up since you brought it up and you had met him and talked with him.
Yeah, that's really great to know. And with your, your experience, that's great confirmation. Yeah, he's really down to earth guy. He's what he is an old cowboy, and he just he's humble. He understands the importance of what happened to him for sure, and he knows people are interested in all that. And so yes, he does speak and tell people, and which is great. I mean, I remember one of the things that struck me with him when and it might even be related to that time period you're talking about. At first, he felt he was abducted and that they meant him harm. But after he got a handle on his trauma and started thinking about it, he changed his viewpoint, not about what happened, but why it happened. And he says, I foolishly ran right into the electrical field of that UFO and it killed me. And they grabbed me and they saved me, or, injured him severely or killed him, whatever. And that it was actually a rescue. And of course, when he awoke inside the craft and freaked out, it was understandable. But it took him some years to get past that trauma, to rethink about not what happened, but why it happened. And I'm really happy for him that he came to that conclusion, because, the terror and the trauma that he faced was absolutely real. And to know then that, they're not here to necessarily harm us. And in fact, they wanted to save him. So yeah, I find that just one of the most credible cases there are.
Yes.
But thank you for that. Yeah, that's awesome.
You're welcome.
And I would say, I totally agree. I don't know Travis anywhere near as well as you, but I've had the pleasure to meet him and hang out with him for a while, and he does seem very genuine. You can still see aspects of that trauma. I don't think that will ever leave him. But yeah, a very interesting case and a really humble person. So let's see. I know that Jamie has a question in the chat, and I'll just read it since it's in there. She says, I heard you speak of obtaining radar imaging data when investigating a MUFON case. From what source did you get this radar imaging data?
Local airport. So you can call the tower. A lot of times you can call. So I usually will start out with a PIO, Public Information Officer, but sometimes you can get right to the tower, and they're usually fairly forthcoming. So it just depends on the circumstances. The other thing is, if it's older, you can file a FOIA request, FOIA, but sometimes they'll cooperate. Sometimes they don't. It's hit and miss.
She also says, curious if the NOAA unfiltered data would be of any value for analysis, or if only military commercial flight radar data would be useful.
No, I think any radar imagery would be useful, but getting it is next to impossible. And but you could correlate, and I know the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UFO Studies, I'm trying to think of his name. Anyways, he's had really good success getting radar data. He was primary investigator on the Stevensville thing in 2008 in Texas, the big sighting that they had there. And they had a lot, radar imagery played a big role in that case, because it was near President Bush's ranch, and they scrambled at F-16s for it and stuff. And they all denied that until we got the radar data, UFO or MUFON, and Robert Powell.
I was going to ask if it was Robert. Yes.
Yeah, Robert Powell. So yeah, and I imagine the bigger the case, the easier it might be to get, but you might have to go formal with a FOIA. But yeah. Hit and
Full
miss.
disclosure, yeah, full disclosure, Jer and I are both contributing members of SCU as well. So
Oh,
I
nice.
always throw that out there just because we want to make
Awesome.
sure that we're open and honest about everything.
Yeah.
So Jer, do you have any questions in Grand Rapids? Otherwise, I'll keep taking the questions online.
Anybody? Nope. Nope, go ahead.
Okay, so let's see. I think, is it Millie?
Yes.
See Mill.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay. So a few minutes ago, you stated that you had videos or of UFOs or paranormal experiences. Do you think you could show that to us today?
I don't have them on this computer. I have them kind of in a safer spot. Let's see. Oh boy. Let me see if I can just, I have one that's pretty freaky. It won't take long. Okay, let's see here. Okay. I'm gonna see if this, all right. This is thermal imagery. And on right here, is my three of us were sitting in chairs in a triangle, and it was 2:30 a.m. on my ranch. No kids, no horses, no nothing out, and we were doing a voice box, and we were trying to engage something, and we had a lot of conversation going, just very amazing. Well, what I want you to do is look right here in this little spot right there, a bluish red spot. And I'm going to run this. Look for something in that area. It's gonna happen twice. Just not visible with this. There was a hand clearly came in and touched the elbow of one of my buddies who was leaned back in the chair like this, touched his elbow twice. You can see it just plain as day. Just goes in and touches it. Ha 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 ha, touches it again. And that was after we had this conversation. We said like, hey, is there anyone here who'd like to speak with us? And a female voice said, I do. And we proceeded to have this long conversation, some really weird stuff. Like we were kind of going in a circle talking about like family members that had passed away. And it was my turn. And I was going to talk about my brother-in-law, Mike, who had passed away. So it was my turn. And I said, Mike, and I was going to say my brother-in-law, yada, yada, yada. Well, I said, Mike, and then over the voice box, the lady says, your brother-in-law.
Wow.
Complete blown mind. And that was prior to the whole touching the hand thing. So that was a very cool experience that we had. The other ones, we frequently have this. This has happened maybe 6 or 8 times. And it's, I think this will show up a little bit better. It's just a photo. Talk about, lights in the sky, right? And orbs. So this was right out in front of my, I don't know if you're going to be able to see those, but yeah, probably not.
Yeah, no, we can see them.
Okay, so there's 5 or 6 of those orbs right there.
Yep.
And we had called them in, we did our CE5. And then I'm just going to show you, I took another photo a few minutes later, if you'll be able to see, but some of them are gone. So it's not stars, wasn't airplanes and that kind of a thing. So
right.
That's a very common thing that we experience. In fact, 2 weeks ago, last Saturday, I had a group of about 15 people, and 4 or 5 of them were brand new, even to the whole topic of UFOs. And they were just, our plan was we were going to sit around my fire pit first and introduce ourselves and tell each other our stories, because we had these new people. And then we were going to go out to have a big arena. And I had tables and chairs set out there so that, and it, you know, you have like a 360 view. Perfect for this. So, but before we even got through the second person telling their story at the fire pit, they appeared. And so we all got up, we went out into the arena and watched them and photographed them for probably 30 minutes. This is unbelievable. So
Shane?
it's very cool. Mhm.
Shane, I need an invite to the Hurd Ranch.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, sometimes we run dry, you know, nothing happens, but you know, we do some other things. Like I said, we'll do the dowsing rods is pretty fun, and a couple other things just to keep it entertaining and stuff. But, you know, the weather's good here now. It's, you know, it's just a really great time, great people, and just a fun experience. And we take our precautions, you know. One of our folks is a channeler, and we make sure that we, from the paranormal side, no bad things, you know, and we open and close the session and things like that. Again, things I would never have known about. I just can't believe I'm saying this, but you know, this is who I am now, and that's fine. But it's definitely different. And again, because MUFON doesn't want to emphasize the woo-woo side or, you know, paranormal. I'm just saying this is independent of my role in MUFON, and it's a side thing, but there's MUFON members that come too. So anyway.
Yeah, I would imagine. And just to point out that I think that for people who have seen the phenomenon with UAPs, it's pretty normal to experience other types of paranormal phenomenon. So it's not unusual at all. So thank you for talking about that. Again, that is something that is outside of MUFON, but it's also, you know, all of us that investigate the phenomena, we're actually real people, and we have other interests as well. So
right.
thank you, Shane, for talking about that. I think that's important. We have Chris Harmon, who has been patiently waiting.
Yes,
Hi,
I want
Chris.
a great job, Shane. I loved the presentation. I loved everything, and I myself am also an experiencer, as a lot of people may know, and I've had many experiences myself. And I want to say that I really enjoyed the presentation, and the video was fantastic. Great job.
Thank you so very much. Really appreciate it. Awesome.
Do we have any other questions? I don't think we have any more here in Fargo. How about Rapids?
Nope, I don't think so.
All
Nope.
right. Well, you have some nice comments too in the comments section. So I don't know if you had a chance to see that, Shane.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, thank you to everyone that did comment, and you know, I really appreciate you guys as well, and just want to encourage you. MUFON is the real deal. It's a great way to go, and if you want to have any inkling to be an investigator, I highly recommend it. Do it. It's interesting and it's satisfying. It doesn't take as much time, money, and effort as you would think, and you know, and even if you're stressed out, your director's gonna, you know, you're a volunteer, right? We're not getting paid to do this, so you don't have to suffer or anything like that. So highly recommend it.
all right. Well, thank you so much, Shane. We really appreciate having you today. You're welcome to stay for the rest, but you've been with us for a while, so we understand if you have other things to do on a Saturday afternoon at the Hurd Ranch.
Yeah,
So
there's always horse poop to scoop, so I gotta get busy.
all right. Thank you so much, Shane.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks again. Really appreciate it.
And now for something completely different.
All right, so welcome back. All right. Always asking if anybody's interested in helping the chapter here. We changed this up a little bit. Field investigators, obviously, we always need field investigators without a doubt, because there's all kinds of stuff. And yes, we do have a membership program, so you're not going to be tossed to the wolves. So once you take the test, that's not the end of any of the training. We'll be with you the whole time. I was looking for authors too, to write articles either for the website or also, you know, if they're good, why not? We could ask MUFON if they want to put them in their journal, and you can be a published author. IT/AV help, obviously, wherever we go, whether it be here, Fargo, or even expos as we do them. And speaking of expos, someone to help us coordinate events. And we're just talking like Bigfoot Reamer days, and just kind of, you know, making sure we have what we need and the information we need. Also, I'd like to set up in the mall at some point in the near future. I say near future, next 3, 4, 5 months, give or take, something like that. I'm sure over in Fargo, there's probably some venues over there you might guys be able to set up You know, when summer's here, maybe we can set up outside Target, or you guys maybe over at the UFO restaurant if they'll let you. I don't know, but those are just some ideas of outreach programs and stuff. Not that any of those are going to happen, but just ideas I like to throw out there, and I really like to get our names out in the community to let people know who we are and what we do. Because I mean, you all have heard of us because you're here, but there's still a lot of people out there that have absolutely no clue who MUFON is or what we do. Well, speaking of community outreach right there, we have one more this year. It's over in the Iron Trail Event Center in Virginia from 10 to 5. That's November 8th. I'll be there. The Todds will be there. And we'll have some shirts and all kinds of stuff. But I want to try to set up some field investigator type hands-on stuff. You know, I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like just yet. But so you can come by and kind of get an idea of what we do and how we go through it. So anyhow, next year we got Reamer Bigfoot Days, but I've also heard a bad rumor that the expos that we have been doing are going to be no longer. I don't know. Anna, do you know anything more about that? Because I have not heard.
Yes, yes. So unfortunately, that's what we heard at an expo we were recently at. Myself and one of our members, Paul, and his wife, and there was a couple people that we recognized that came by. We were at expo in Detroit Lakes, and that went really great. We got a lot of people that came by our table. But yes, the organizer said that they were looking at doing a different format, maybe a craft show in next year. So they didn't have anything set up for next year. Maybe they'll change their minds. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. And even if they're doing craft shows, I'm still tempted to go ahead and do them anyhow, just to get out there, you know? So we'll see how that goes.
Does somebody knit? Because maybe we could have knitted UFO sweaters or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Something. I'm open to suggestions. Okay, yeah, so we're still need your help with donations and stuff. We're still trying to get the tent, which is going to be great for Reamer. And anything else that we end up doing, if we're setting up outside, definitely going to want some cover, especially around here. Upcoming speakers. Next month, we got some great guys from Project Hestalin. And like I said, Anna can talk about that. She knows more about them than I do, but they sound like some really good people. So I'm looking forward to that. December, Lenville Logan, who's with the UAP Task Force. And then lucky enough, when we were at the premiere of a documentary that was last Saturday.
That was last Saturday, yes.
Yep,
Jared and I are both in a documentary. Some of you may have heard about it, called The Outer Edge. Hopefully it will be turned into a TV series soon. And Scott Walter was also in that. And so we got a chance to back him into a corner. And Jared, I'll let you talk about that because it's pretty exciting. Something that we're looking to do in 2026 is have in-person rather than via Zoom speakers.
Yeah, we'll have Scott right here in Grand Rapids. It'll be really nice. So in person, talk to him. He'll bring up some books. Maybe you can get some signed books from him and stuff like that. So should be good. So if you guys want something over in Fargo from him, you let me or Anna know, or anybody online, just let us know and we'll try to get it for you. If you're looking for UFO related topics or would like to learn more about something, suggestion for the chapter, you got to let us know. This is our chapter. This isn't mine. This isn't Anna's. This is our chapter. And I can't say that enough because it's all of us that make it happen. So if there's something that you want to listen to, learn about, whatever, please say something because it takes all of us to make this happen. Let us know. Okay, Anna, I'm going to let you do this one because you know how much I love begging.
So Jared doesn't like to beg for money. Well, neither do I actually, but none of this comes for free. We just paid $175. Forgot to tell you that, Jared, for our Zoom fee. So yeah, there is a cost and we do not receive any money at all, unfortunately, from MUFON headquarters. So we operate totally on donations. So we have ways to donate in person. You can do Venmo. And if you can't afford to donate, not a problem. You can donate your time or your skills. There's always a way that you can help the chapter.
And don't forget the glowy this year.
Yeah, don't forget the glowy.
Okay, and yes, we do have a YouTube channel. Like I was talking about before, we got the full meetings on there. We got spotlight cases, what's up in the Northland presenters. And I may be making some more videos too. It's just really a matter of time. But we'll see how that goes. So if I can crank out a video or two every week, that would be helpful. But right now I'm kind of struggling to keep up with just one a week. So we'll see how that works out. But you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, all that kind of stuff. I don't know anything about that. You just have to ask Ann about that. She knows more than I do. So something about the difference between a page and a group on Facebook, I still have not figured that one out. I don't understand it. Okay, so discovery is not a solo mission. It's a shared journey towards understanding the unknown. We can't do all this without help and without everybody that's here. Like I keep saying the whole time, it takes all of us to make this happen. But I do want to take a moment to thank the people that are on the board, the field investigators that are here and online, in person, and of course the graphics designer for all the hard work that they do. And I know you guys are doing a lot of hard work too, and I really appreciate it. We all really do. I can't say that enough. Awesome. My most favorite time of the meeting. This is it. This is the time. Okay. The extraterrestrial joke of the month. This month brought to you by Ellie Marr with Full Circle Soul. She is a quantum healing hypnosis technique person doing Dolores Cannon's method in Fargo. So what are your soul's experiences and what are your past or other lives? The universe is huge. Do you want to find out more? FullCircleSoul.net. Well, Ellie is a wonderful person. So
That she is.
Get to know her. Go to the website. Sign up for a session. See how it goes for you. If you want to sponsor the extraterrestrial joke of the month, it's only $10. It's a great fundraiser for us. Let us know. You're here in person. You can send us an email. If you've got a joke, I'm more than willing to use it because I'm running out of them, as you're going to see in the next one. But just let us know. Be happy to use your joke. Whatever. You'll get credit for it. I'll give you credit for it. If you send me a joke and it's funny, I'm going to give you credit for it. Okay, so now the moment that we have all been waiting for, Northland MUFON's extraterrestrial joke of the month. What is an alien's favorite pickup line?
So if you're online and you want to make a guess, feel free to put it in the chat.
Yeah, I think Jamie's in charge of the chat now because I can't see it anymore.
Strangely, I can see it, so
Okay.
not sure how that happened. But anybody here in Fargo have a guess? Anybody online? Beam me
All
up.
right. I've told you that I'm running out. Okay. So here we go. What is an alien's favorite pickup line? Are you made of dark matter? Because you're pulling me in.
You actually got some laughs this time, Jer.
Good. All right. Now, like I said, I'm running out, so I need some help. Please help. Okay, this is all you, Anna. 3i Atlas, take it away.
So has anybody here in Fargo or in Rapids or online heard of 3i Atlas? Ooh, I got several hands up here.
Nobody here knows anything about it.
Nobody in Rapids knows anything about it. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
right. Everybody here does.
somehow I'm not sure about that. So go ahead and, by the way, before we move to the next one, this is an actual image from the Hubble telescope in July of 3i Atlas. Can you forward? Perfect. So got a trivia question for you. Does anybody know how 3i Atlas gets its name? We got one person here. How about in Rapids?
I do.
Yeah, we got at least one. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, there we go. A couple online.
So 3i Atlas, it looks like 31 Atlas, and it'd be great if the I actually looked more like an I, but 3i Atlas gets its name because it's the third interstellar object that we've discovered, which is amazing, really. Hence the 3i, 3 and then interstellar. And the Atlas, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, is the name of the telescope system that discovered it. So that's why it's called 3i Atlas. Next slide. So we want to play this video for you, and I don't see do you have a little player that you're?
Yeah.
Okay. So some of you might remember back in June, we were honored to have Dr. Avi Loeb as our guest. It was amazing. We were so great to have him. This is a very short, probably 4-minute long interview that he did with News Nation. And this interview, I believe, was on Thursday. So it's very recent.
So what does that mean exactly? Avi Loeb joins us now. He's the head of the Galileo Project, director of Harvard University's Institute for Theory and Computation, and author of the book Extraterrestrial. Okay, Avi, we've had you on so many times. I always love talking to you about this. Any more of a clue as to what this thing is or is not?
Well, we are still waiting for NASA to release an image, the highest resolution image with 30 kilometers per pixel that was obtained on October 2nd by the HiRISE camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. We are seeing the anti-tail that was pointed towards the sun, opposite to what we see in the context of comets, and now changing direction and going away from the sun, the more conventional way. We don't know what the reason is. And as you pointed out, we see some unusual composition of nickel with very little iron that we only find in industrially produced nickel alloys. And the size of the object, it's at least 1,000 times more massive than the previous interstellar objects we've seen. And the question is, why is such a giant object delivered to our inner solar system when we saw only small ones before? And it comes along the plane of the planets around the sun, and it comes close to Mars, Jupiter, and we just have to monitor it. And gladly, yesterday, the International Asteroid Warning organization network decided to have a campaign starting on November 27th until January 27th, where it will coordinate using all the assets we have on Earth and in space to get as much data as possible about this mysterious object. And, that would be a great blessing, irrespective of whether it's natural or technological. But if it happens to do a maneuver when it comes close to the sun, the way spacecraft do, using gravitational assist from the sun, that would definitely affect the markets, the financial markets, and politics on Earth.
Why? Because everybody will suddenly feel like, uh-oh, we've just been invaded? I mean, because if it does a maneuver around the sun, that would show it's not a natural object, right?
Yes, it will be a technological signature, but it could be also a mothership that releases mini probes that maneuver. And so I tasked the research team of the Galileo project. We have 3 observatories monitoring the sky to check for any unusual activity in the coming months. We have also orbiters around Mars that could check for unusual activity there. So I think we should keep our eyes open and not assume anything, because it could be a black swan event where something that looks natural at first ends up being like a Trojan horse, and because the implications are so huge for humanity, we must consider it seriously.
And you just put an article at it, like literally just posted a few minutes ago. I wonder, the last line of this article you write, 3i Atlas will get closest to Earth on December 19th, 2025. Here's hoping that by then we will know more about our dating partner in this interstellar blind date. Are you the only person? Are there other people who are sharing your concern about what this object is and about the possibility that it could be something that is not natural?
Oh, definitely. There is a huge amount of interest. I was just invited to Washington, D.C. to speak with congresspeople and others. I'm speaking with Joe Rogan in a couple of days on his podcast. There is a lot of people who really want to learn more about it. There is also misinformation, of course, but the beauty of science is that we should be guided by data. And this is an excellent opportunity also to attract young people to science, because it's exciting. And the implications of the findings that we will have in the coming months could be very significant, and we should do the same for future objects of this nature.
Yeah, Joe Rogan.
And I should say one
Rogan's
more
really
thing.
big into space, and
I should say one thing about blind dates. You often assume that the partner, the dating partner, would be very friendly, but you have to worry about the serial killers as well.
Okay, Avi Loeb with a lot of warnings for everybody tonight. Avi, you're one of my favorite guests. Come back soon once we know more. You're always welcome here. So
So if you've heard of 3i Atlas, you've probably seen all kinds of junk. There's all kinds of crazy conspiracy theories, images that aren't accurate or true. How do you find credible information on this? Well, one of the ways that you can do that is to go to people like Dr. Loeb, who really put their careers on the line when they talk about things. But this image is something that I found very interesting. So I actually watched online. You can go to Dobsonian Power and you can see how he did it. There was certain aspects of it that made it a little bit more believable for me, but when I look at these highly enhanced images, I don't know if they're credible or not. There are some people who would know that are looking at these images and looking pretty closely at them actually. And I won't mention their names, but that makes me even more interested in these images. So could this actually be the images of 3i Atlas? If it is, specifically the two on the left-hand side, I'm not quite sure about the one on the right. That doesn't look natural to me, but I guess we'll just have to kind of see when it comes around. Next slide, Jer. So this is a little bit about what Avi was talking about, and you can find these online. The International Asteroid Warning Network, that's highly unusual. In fact, they've never actually done this to study Iraq. They're using it as a test, just to, look at the protocols and make sure that they have everything set up so that in the future, if something interesting comes along, they know what to do. It's interesting that they chose 3i Atlas to do that, especially with all the controversy. So definitely makes you kind of wonder, along with a little bit of change in the protocol for what they normally would do in a situation like this. And SETI actually updated their post-detection protocols, which is very interesting. These happened on almost the same day. Why would SETI decide to open and, update their post-detection protocols? I find that very interesting as well. And NASA definitely took a bunch of images with the Mars orbiter, but for some reason, we're not able to see them. So all of this really leads to a bunch of, speculation and concern and worry and intrigue, and it leads to a lot of conspiracy. So I just wanted to take a moment during our meeting to kind of go over that. If anybody has any questions, we can try and answer. We got one question here. Is there another slide to this, Chair? Nope. Okay. So we got one question here.
Is NASA open because of the government shutdown?
The question is NASA open because of the government shutdown? Well, NASA's got a lot of stuff going on, so they really can't close. Supposedly they can't release the images because of the shutdown, but I don't believe that. They have
Convenient excuse.
Someone here says convenient excuse. Yeah, that doesn't seem correct to me that they can't release the images because of the government shutdown, but yeah, we had a comment here in Fargo that said they sent their public relations guy home and that's why they can't do it. Any questions online? I don't know that we're going to be able to answer questions because we still don't really know what it is, but we can try. All right, Jer, floor is yours.
Okay, spotlight cases. Yeah, well, you guys are gonna have to wait. Case management system or the CMS or case management system is down. So I was unfortunately too slow to pick any. That's just kind of how it goes. I normally wait till the Thursday or Friday prior to the meeting to pick a couple of cases, but it was too late. CMS is down, so we weren't able to get any of those. So what's going on, guys, over in the Northland? The only thing I got on here is an update. And that update is here. And I will take your input on this, Anna, for sure. In May of this year in Proctor, which is over by Duluth, a gentleman got in an argument with his girlfriend, hopped out of the car, started walking. He said it was really foggy, had a triangular craft fly over from the right to the left, disappeared in the fog. He walked another 15, 20 minutes to get to a bus stop, got on a bus and went home. However, that whole thing took about 2.5 hours when it only should have taken about 15, 20 minutes. The other part of this is that the weather that day was clear skies, 30-mile-an-hour gust winds. So there was no, this was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so there's no way there would have been fog. I've talked to the guy several times. He's seems very sincere. He's not looking for anything out of this. He's like, I'm just trying to tell my story. If it helps somebody, that's great. That's it. He doesn't want anything, not looking for anything else. So considering that there's missing time and the fact that he seems to be very humble and doesn't want, not looking for anything to get out of this other than just telling his story, I'm thinking it's possibly that it could have been a screen memory with the fog, and that something really did happen, and maybe he really did see this. So I put it down as an unknown UAV. Here's some of the sketches that he made of it. The one on the right's the first one. He didn't really like that one that well, so he tried to do the ones on the left. The biggest thing on this was, he said the back side of it was concave, you know, almost like a boogie board, if you guys are familiar with those, or one of those things you use in the pool. So I found that to be interesting. I've heard that before a couple of times. It's just kind of interesting because when people talk about triangular craft, they're just talking about, you know, an isosceles looking triangle, and that's it, or equilateral triangle. And they never really discussed the indentation on the backside. But I've had a few witnesses that have talked about it. So that's just something that I thought was rather strange. Anna, do you have anything? I know this wasn't your case, this is mine, but do you have anything that you might, any questions you might have?
I think you actually covered it. So what I'm seeing and hearing is that the witness is sincere, he's credible, his story is consistent, and he's not looking to gain anything. He's not, sometimes we have hoaxers that are trying to get people to go to their YouTube channel or whatnot, you know, their social media so that they can make money. None of that seems to be the case. And you said one thing that really made me consider that this is probably, you know, at least from his perspective, sincere, that he just wanted to get the information out there in case somebody else has had a similar experience. You know,
Right.
there's one thing about having a really unusual, weird experience that you can't explain. You feel very isolated and alone. And so those folks often want to connect in some way, usually not in person, but in some way with other people. And it sounds like that's what he's trying to do here. And so all of that makes me, you know, really come to the conclusion that this is probably pretty credible.
Yeah. It's just, I'm just struggling with the whole weather being absolutely beautiful and windy that day. And he's talking about the fog. So I'm considering that it's probably just a screen memory. And I'm going to believe this guy. So it's kind of a weird one. And I know it's kind of a stretch, but it just, that's the conclusion I'm coming up with. So that's kind of the challenge that you're going to come up with as a field investigator. You know, just like Shane was talking about, you follow the facts. Well, the facts say that there shouldn't have been any fog, but the facts are also saying that this guy's not looking for anything. He just wants to get the word out, and that's it. He's going to stay in the shadows and whatever. So why would he make up the story and stick to it? Even after I told him, I says, look, man, weather was this. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you. It was foggy, you know? So I don't know. Unknown UAV. That's what we're going to roll with on that one. I have no idea how many new cases we have. Like I said, it's normally the Thursday or Friday that I look through it to figure out all the cases. Besides, I want to keep it up as updated as possible. So I try to do it last minute. So until the case management system comes up, we've got nothing. So all this really means is that next Thursday, you're probably going to have the presenter video on YouTube. I should be able to publish that one. However, the spotlight cases and the new cases are going to have to wait. Hopefully, I'll have those up in the next couple of weeks if the case management system's back up. So you can get to the CMS, you can try to log in, but it stops there. So it's on MUFON's side now to figure out what's going on. Hopefully soon.
And if I could just add something quick to that. For those that aren't aware, we've been having some issues with our CMS, our case management system. It's our online database. It's getting old and needs to be replaced, and it's in the process of being replaced right now. So within the next couple of months, we should not have this issue in the future.
I hope you were absolutely correct too. Yes. And the new, you know, fun fact trivia here, the new system is going to be called the Andrus system, ANDRUS, and it's an homage to one of the founders of MUFON, Walt Andrus. And I don't remember what it stands for. Do you remember?
I don't.
Okay, that's fine.
Monday.
We can talk about that next month, what it stands for, because I don't remember. So anyhow, North Dakota cases are going to be pending. Northern Minnesota cases are going to be pending. and that's what's going on in the Northland. We'll find out later. Okay, so after all those fun investigations, I know everybody here wants to be a field investigator now. So it's really simple. Just make sure you're a member of MUFON, MUFON.com. Purchase the Field Investigator Manual, study it, take the test. It's open book. It's not hard. I mean, you do have to study, but it's not hard. And then once you pass the test, you're going to be assigned a mentor, so you're not going to be on your own. We're here to help. Make sure that you know exactly what you're doing. And if you need any help ever in the future, everybody's always, I think Jamie can attest to that. If you ever need any help, everybody's always here to help.
Yes, I have had many moments of help.
Thank you, Jamie. And Jamie is one of our mentors too, by the way. She knows what she's doing. Anybody have any questions for an investigator? This is a kind of a new thing that we're going to do. And I know we're kind of running late, so I'm probably not going to do this too much. But if anybody has any questions for an investigator, whether that be myself, Anna, Jamie, or I can't see who else is online, but any other investigators that are online right now. Does anybody have anything? And all I can see is here in the room. So if there's anybody in online or in Fargo, Anna, you're going to have to let me know. Oh, we got one question. Yes, ma'am. How often do field investigators come across dead carcasses? If you get a dead carcass case and you don't want it, you don't have to have it. I have not. I've been doing this now for about 6 years, 6.5 years, and I have not come across one. So that's it. Anybody else?
And MUFON has a protocol for that too. So if you buy the handbook, you'll find out what that is.
You just haven't gotten that far yet. Studying the handbook as we talk. Anybody else? Oh, nothing. Okay. All right. Nobody online and nobody in Fargo, right?
Nope.
Okay. One last thing here, since we're going to get to the raffle part of it. Last month's winner, Tony G. Thank you. He found where I drank caramel apple soda, and that was when Erling Strand was our guest. So congratulations, Tony, on finding that. Your $10 Amazon gift card will be happening this evening if I can get to it. If not, it'll be tomorrow. But you're going to get that. What is the next one? I changed it up a little bit. Okay. So this time, all you got to do is figure out when I drank lemon meringue soda. And yes, it was disgusting. Lemon meringue soda. And tell me what book I was reading. So you don't have to figure out who the guest speaker was. Just tell me what book. And it's clear. It's 2 words right there. You can't miss it. Let us know. Northland MUFON info@gmail.com, and you can be the next winner of a $10 Amazon gift card. Okay, next month's speaker, Fred Paulson, Rainier Hasidal, doing Project Hessdown. So tune in next time. Same UFO time, same UFO place. See you there for price time.
And root beer. Gluten-free, caffeine-free. What is the point? Yeah, at least it's not ranch. Yeah, not too bad, I guess. And again, here we are. Meeting's over, you're still here. Feel free to leave, feel free to go home. You don't have to stay here, just go away. The 4-leaf clover incident. Oh, I wonder what that's all about.